start by talking about your current position as you're the CTO of Optimal Blue. Um, and in particular, I'm interested in how, as a collective, you guys have been incorporating AI into tech and development strategies for Optimal Blue in the mortgage lending.
Yeah, no, certainly. So, in my role as CTO, Chief Technology Officer for Optimal Blue, and just quickly about Optimal Blue, so we're a mortgage technology provider. We have over 40% of loans go through our product and pricing engine. What that means is anytime one of us goes to the bank or a loan officer trying to get a mortgage, get a loan for a home, the rate and the product that we get comes from a system like Optimal Blue's PPE. That's one of our products, and we have other products and applications for hedging and loan trading. But we're kind of a very well-known provider of technology services in the mortgage industry. We have a large technology organization. I run the engineering shop, which is development, testing, business analysis, DevOps, BI, etc. And over 2 years ago, when generative AI became a thing that we all knew about, we started kind of diving into what does it really mean? We didn't know, right? We were like, okay, this sounds promising. It sounds like it has multiple use cases. So we started by looking at how it was implemented in Copilot, and specifically in GitHub Copilot. You hear a lot of Copilots today, right? Copilot in
Hmm.
Office 365, like you can have it in Microsoft Excel or Microsoft Word. There's copilots in basically anything, and I like the term because what it means is that the human is still the pilot. The generative AI tool is really your copilot assisting you. And there's talks about agents and all that stuff, which we can get to. But going back to how we started, we looked at the GitHub Copilot, which is a coding assistant tool. We have software developers in our organization that we write software for, we provide software as a service for our clients, or mainly the lender, mortgage lender. So we looked at using GitHub Copilot for productivity. How do we help developers write code faster with an assistant? And not just faster, but with more kind of a second set of eyes that you look at your code. Maybe an assistant can help you write unit tests. And that was sort of the beginning, and we have evolved much more from that, but that's how we started.
So essentially, you guys are beginning to use AI as more of, not its own agent, but just more of an assistant for your developers for writing said code.
Except for that, not beginning, that was 2 years ago, and now
Mm.
we're much more advanced in using sort of generative AI for development as an assistant. And there's more evolution, as you know, from what it was 2 years ago. Right now, there's GPT-5, and there's other makers, producers of AI. Anthropic Claude. It has one of the best premium models with Sonnet 3.7 and now 4 that helps with coding. Of course, you also have Google Gemini and Mistral and other LLM models, or large language models, that are used in assistance. So we're a lot more advanced in terms of using it for productivity, but we're also are one of the, at least in my opinion, one of the pioneers or leaders of using generative AI in products. We've implemented it in multiple features of our Optimal Blue applications. The product and pricing engine that I mentioned to you, we use generative AI in what we call an originator assistant that helps the loan officer identify not only the product and pricing that the borrower is eligible for, but it also provides an assistant in advising in multiple scenarios where a borrower can get better rates by slightly modifying their loan parameters. And we've also launched one of our flagship products called Ask Obi, and that's a chat application that helps lenders get answers on their loan portfolio, basically from our data warehouse. So we're using it in multiple areas, not just product or productivity for developers, but for testers, and we also use it in products.
So it seems like it's become a pretty major part of Optimal Blue's processing
Certainly.
and multiple aspects as well.
Exactly right.
So I would like to take a step back and focus on something that you were a part of. You were the co-founder of Resitrader, which was eventually acquired by Optimal Blue. And I'd
Right.
love to know from your experience what that was like, co-founding it and pioneering said company and the process of getting acquired by Optimal Blue. I'd love to just
Yeah,
hear your experience on that.
yeah, no, certainly. I mean, that was, I think that's probably one of the better experiences in my career and one of the hardest as well. So it started in 2014, really, when I met the co-founder, John Ardy. We both worked at a company, and John had the idea. And he's actually, I believe, tried to build it before with a team. And John and I talked about it, and we decided to build it together. And Resitrader, what it was or what it is, it's a loan trading platform. So, as a borrower, when you get a mortgage, you will often see that you get a letter 30 days, 60 days after your loan closes that the mortgage rights have been transferred to another servicer or another company. That transaction happens a lot, right? A lot of the loans that get made or originated are then sold. And that process used to be done with phone calls and Excel files before Resitrader started. And that's what John wanted to automate. And we built a marketplace or an exchange, sort of sometimes I called it the eBay of mortgages, where sellers can post their loans on this exchange and have investors come in, look at them and bid, put a price on those loans. And it was on a loan level pricing, not a sort of pool level. So it was a pretty cool idea. It wasn't done automatically before that, and we automated that process. Any startup, as you can imagine, is pretty hard, right? Most days you feel like you're not going to make it. This is really hard because, especially when something that like the idea wasn't even proven in the market. So we're trying something completely new. I personally, honestly, knew nothing about mortgage trading when we started. John was more of the business expert. But there were days that we felt we're on top of the world because we signed up a new lender, a new client. So it was a pretty rewarding experience. Obviously a lot of hard work that went into that.
Mhm.
Myself, John, our team that we put together, and then when Optimal Blue approached us to acquire the company, it made a lot of sense because it was a natural fit for Optimal Blue's hedging and loan trading applications. They had that business. What they didn't have is an automated sort of a marketplace and automating that workflow. So it was just a natural fit into their business. So it made a lot of sense for us to uh, become part of Autoblue to grow the platform. Just to give you an idea, when we sold the company, we were processing 700 million loans a month. Now over 10 billion, sorry, $1 million worth of loans, not million loans. Now over $10 billion worth of loans goes to Resitrader. So that kind of growth, we
Mhm.
could not have acquired so many customers on our
Right.
own, and Optimal Blue obviously provided that.
So I love to because I've interviewed a couple of entrepreneurs so far, and when I've asked them about the most important characteristics for entrepreneurs to have, especially working with startups, a lot of them mention uh, resiliency. I've seen that as a common theme. Being able to kind of deal with the emotional roller coaster that is entrepreneurship. So, in your career, what would you say were the most useful aspects or characteristics that you had that ultimately led to your success?
I think I would agree with the resiliency, and because you have to be patient, and um, you got to believe in something, right? You got to believe that this will happen and be resilient. Like I said, with so many days, if you take a week, I mean, if you take 10 days, 9 out of 10 days, we felt like this is not going to work, right? It was just so hard. Um, you get rejections, you get lenders who will say, no, thank you. So it's a cool platform, but we're not going to use it. And then you get that one day where something good happens and you feel like you're in. So I think that's one. And I think that the second one, honestly, for me is besides hard work, is you got to believe that no task is too small or too big, right? I was busy setting up a workspace or like a desktop for a developer that we just hired, and also working on some strategic initiative for our next feature. So, or next partnership. So you gotta just do everything yourself and believe that everything is your job as an entrepreneur, and there is nothing that you shouldn't be doing. But it
And
takes a
so,
lot of patience, and it takes really confidence, and resiliency is really, I think, a key word to use for that.
mm. Now, if you could go back, and I'm not sure how long I assume that you've been lifelong interested in entrepreneurship and business, but if
Yeah,
you could go back and tell your 20-year-old self something, would that be what you would tell him? Giving him a piece of advice for the future.
that's a fantastic question, Zain. I think what I would tell my daughter, who's not 20 yet, she's 11, is that I think that the most important merit or value or merit that you can have in your life is really confidence.
Mm,
Right? Building your confidence and diving into doing things that you're not 100% sure that you can do it is really the number one key to success, in my opinion. Because we went into that, and I went to many other things not knowing that I could do it. And I didn't necessarily do them all. I wasn't successful all the time. Had failures, have made mistakes, of course, just like any other human. But going in with confidence into anything is really the key to success.
mm. I'd love to jump back to Optimal Blue for a second. So you are the Chief Technology Officer, like we've mentioned before, and you lead technology and development strategies for Optimal Blue, right? That falls under you. So what does that look like in the day to day? What are your kind of day to day responsibilities, both small picture and big picture, for Optimal Blue?
Great question. So, I mean, our organization is large from a dev perspective. Obviously, as a CTO, can't be involved in every little detail. So we won't talk about the role of a development manager or a QA manager, but from a chief technology officer perspective, you got to keep your eyes on sort of the strategic, high-level initiatives, but also organization. You have to be a good organizational leader. And I'm not saying that I am, but in general, a CTO would have to be both a good organizational and operational leader, as well as a strategic executive that can work and partner with the business and the CEO, in my case, for what's coming ahead. So what that means is you have to choose what initiatives or what projects you want to be involved in the detail and which ones you don't. Fortunately for me, I have a very strong management team under me that, the directors of development, directors of QA. We have a chief architect and director of architecture. So I rely heavily on that team and there's only 5 that are able to make decisions, and they can run the organization. Where I try to get involved in, usually when we build something new, whether it's a new process, for example, generative AI, when we brought it in, I was heavily involved in understanding what that is and how we can get the team. But I didn't do it alone, I did it with my team. Or if we build a new feature, especially if we build a new product, I'd like to be very involved in who's the team, how are we selecting the team member, the architecture, the design. I am not an architect. We have architects that are very intelligent, very experienced, but I like to understand how that works and what is it that we're building to ensure that whatever we build matches the business and initiatives and the business goal.
Okay. Now, from a personal standpoint, what is your opinion on the future of artificial intelligence? Because you hear all this buzz about people saying that AI will take over everything, or there are a lot of varying perspectives on it, since it's such a new and emerging technology, and it's increased in capacity so fast. So, what are your thoughts on what the future of really the U.S. and the world will look like with the continued rapid development of artificial intelligence?
Yeah, great question, Zane. I think I'll answer that in 2 ways. One is as a new technology that is introduced, it's similar to I don't know, going back to railroads or the internet, right? What it did, it eliminated some jobs, but it created new jobs, right?
Mm,
And it helped improve the quality of life, improve innovation in many other areas, right? So without the internet, I mean, you probably couldn't imagine your life without the internet, right? Because you were born when the internet was there. I was born when there was no internet, and life was, and I got into technology, into development where there was no internet, and sometimes there wasn't even a network, and networking was a new thing. So I think in one aspect, I believe that it will create a new type of job, right? And I don't think it will replace all jobs, but it will create jobs that you can do better with AI. And I think the more that, or generative AI, I mean, AI has been out there for a while, but with generative AI, if you are able to use it, we're not all producers of generative AI, right? We're not all going to be OpenAI and Anthropic where we produce, but most of us are users or implementers. Like Optimal Blue, we implemented on a low level. We use the LLMs in our products. So I believe that it will create new jobs. The second part of it is using the same comparison. Is AI going to be dangerous for humanity? I think there's if we're not able to provide some set of boundaries and rules around it, if you can think of it, right, you can make like human evolution in general, right? We're smarter than we were 10,000 years ago, right? But human evolution, the evolution of brain is a lot slower than the pace by which technology is evolved or is evolving, right? And if you use Moore's law, right, every 18 months, we double capacity of CPU and memory, right? So, but at some point, there's going to be some limitation of hardware, right? How small can you make a chip? But without digressing too much on that, if you think about that evolution of technology and compare it to the speed of the evolution of a human brain, technology is a lot faster, right? So if we make a generative AI robot, for example, right, that can think of their own and make it as smart as a human, and that generative AI robot can build its own next version, that is going to evolve a lot faster than our own brains evolve. So you would think that it could overcome, I mean, the human intelligence and control, but you always have that plug, right? You can pull the plug, you can have a kill switch that you have to build. So if we're careful in how we design and build, I think we'll be okay. But unless there are some boundaries at many levels, I don't know. You could get in the next 50 years, not 10 years or 20 years, but in the next 50 years, it could become something that we should be careful about.
That's very interesting. I've never heard that comparison between the evolution of human intelligence and artificial intelligence. It's a very interesting way to look at it. But what I'm hearing is your opinion is that in terms of business and entrepreneurship, really, generative AI will serve as being able to optimize businesses in certain ways and also open doors for people to use the AI in new ways that they couldn't if the AI wasn't there.
That's exactly right. I mean, just to come back to the small world, right? We're at Optimal Blue, for example, right? When we think about AI for products, right, for our business, we try to invest the time and money in identifying high impact use cases, right? So that we can use generative AI only, exactly the point that you made, only in areas where we couldn't solve that problem without AI,
Mm-hmm.
right? So why invest all the time in it? So, and that's the same thing, right? I think it will be able to help create new companies, right? New organizations where AI agents, right, are doing some of the tedious work that a human wouldn't have to do, where the human brain and the human capabilities can be used in making that company even more productive. And what happens is when organizations in the US or the world are more productive and they can innovate, it improves quality of life. It produces new products, new processes, new services for all of us.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I've heard a lot of, in interviewing, other entrepreneurs, I've heard a lot of people say that it is really opening doors for people, even individual people with the help of AI or a small team to create something that they could never have done beforehand without,
Exactly.
using artificial intelligence to get to that level.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
There would be things that we do. I think the the opportunities really are quite broad, right? With especially with new, evolutions of new models, new generations of AI that come. I just did a presentation. I spoke at the Housing Wire AI Summit not long ago, about less than a month ago, and one of the things that we talked about is really, I think, according to Gartner's, by 2027, they believe that 15% of uh, products will be developed without a human in the loop, right? Or 50% of new features. And I don't know if that prediction will come true or not, but that's an example of where AI could help. Like there are some no-code solutions. Just going back to our lives as builders of software, we could start taking advantage of some of these no-code solutions where you can build a product, or for us, we'll be prototyping a product because we wouldn't want to do it without a human in the loop. Prototyping a product and make that process faster so we can serve our clients and our lenders better, and maybe even create a more enhanced feedback loop between us and them through those type of tools. So it could really, I mean, if it's used and utilized properly, it could create a lot of opportunities to improve services. And what happens when you improve the services for a lender? You reduce their cost of origination, and ultimately, you would hope that it would reduce the cost for a borrower, right? That we can all get loans that have better rates, less points, and better product.
Yeah, it seems to be a very exciting time for young entrepreneurs in particular. Like I saw Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, talk about how if he was a college kid right now or just getting out of college, he'd feel like the luckiest man in the world to be born at a time where such a technology is developing. It's kind of like being born or being alive to utilize the new development of the internet when that first started. So it seems like it's a
Yeah,
very very exciting and promising time for young entrepreneurs to create using artificial intelligence for sure.
indeed, yeah, and I like that. I haven't heard that from Sam Altman, but that's a great point. And I think you have to embrace it, right? Embrace
Hmm.
generative AI, understand how you use it. Um, and like I was just reading a book last week, and it says like if you know how something works, you can control it, right? It's the same thing with AI, with generative AI. If you know how it operates, you don't have to understand or build your own LLM, but if you understand how it was built, you can control the output.
Well, that's everything I have for you. I really appreciate you sitting down and taking the time to talk to me about this. I think it was
Yeah,
very very informative.
excellent. My pleasure, Dave. Great seeing you, and nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you.